Hello, everybody, and welcome to Watchful Studio. I know it's been a little while since I've done a video, basically for anything. Life's been hectic, it's been crazy. As you've seen maybe in some previous videos, we recently moved from Chicago to the Atlanta, Georgia area, and unpacking, getting used to life. Also, we moved into a bigger home, but it presented some challenges for setting up my workshop, my studio, and where I'm going to do filming. So right now I'm actually in the basement of our home, which is unfinished, which is one of the reasons why I'm using this green screen, because let's face it, a black screen with my company logo is more exciting to look at than an unfinished basement. We set up shop, trying to get back into doing some hobbying. And ironically enough, a few days ago, I got a wonderful email from the studio at Battlefront Miniatures in New Zealand, and they sent me over the new Battle of the Bulge American book, and it's got tons of cool new units that obviously they've had in the past, but there's some fresh looks to them, some new plastics that are going to be coming out, obviously a full-blown release for the Americans, increasing the amount of stuff that you can now take, giving you some newer options, newer rules, that kind of thing. They were also kind enough to send over the command cards as well as the unit cards for the book. So we'll probably be taking a look at those in a separate video because the information and the book alone is going to probably take up a ton of time just to go through. So I wanted to start looking through that. And I know it's been a little while with Battlefront and releases, and you know, the warehouse in Malaysia has been shut down for a while because of COVID, and Southeast Asia has been crazy. And now that we're actually starting to see some releases come again, it's exciting. And if you haven't checked out the video from All Miniatures Great and Small, I'll give a little shameless plug out to those guys. They do a lot of Flames of War content. And a few weeks ago, they did one about switching over from 40K to Flames of War. And I'll talk about it in future videos about my experiences in wargaming and 40K, Flames of War, why I got into it. I think it'd be an interesting video to make. But for now, let's talk about Battle of the Bulge Americans. And there's some cool things that they added in as well that go a little bit past the Bulge as far as the war's timeline is concerned. But let's go right ahead and get into it. So I'm going to go right ahead and flip open the book. We got a cool new piece of artwork for the front cover of the book. Bulge American. So fighting in the Western Front, 1944, 1945. And we have a map of the actions that have taken place. And of course, all the authors and contributors to the book. And then let's take a quick look at the contents. So we can see we have the 4th Armored Division with a bunch of new unit types that we haven't seen in any books previously. 7th Armored Division, again, adding in all those new M4 Sherman chassis tanks, all the different variants. We have also the Chaffies that are going to be making an appearance in this book. The nice thing I like about this book is they also have army lists for the bridge at Remagen. So going a little bit past the Battle of the Bulge as the Allied forces hit Germany. And then it gets into the different types of infantry and airborne divisions, 28th Infantry Division, 4th Infantry Division, 2nd Infantry Division, and then back to Bastogne. You're looking at the Screaming Eagles, so the 101st Airborne at Bastogne, as well as the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment. And then it gets a little bit more into the history and that race towards Germany and the bridge of Remagen. And then it gets into some other army lists that I have particular interest in, which are your tank destroyer battalions. You're looking at your M18 Hellcats, your M36s with M10s mixed in if you want to field those. Then, of course, you have all of your different support units. And the nice thing about this video is you and I are actually going to be going through this together. This is the first time that I've actually even looked at the contents. So hopefully there'll be some exciting things in here to show. So let's move on. So we have the special rules section. So I wanted to compare the special rules that are listed in this book versus the D-Day American book, just to actually see if they maintain the same rules, maybe there's any slight tweaks or whatever. So looking under tanks, we have a component, stabilizer, and smooth ride. It looks like at first glance, the component and stabilizer rules are pretty much word verbatim. Even the little italics portion looks like it's exactly the same wording. Smooth ride is a new rule, so which applies to Easy 8 teams. They don't suffer that +1 penalty to hit for stabilizers if they move less than 4 inches in a movement step. So pretty cool. So you can move them less than 4 inches, be able to get that full rate of fire without that +1 penalty to hit, which is pretty nice. Airborne rules are the same. MG transport rules listed exactly the same, so no issues there. Unit transport, again, same exact rules, so that's good. And then tank destroyers. So tank destroyers, seek, strike, and destroy are worded exactly the same. Very cool. Battle tank is something new. So let's take a look at that. And missions with deep reserves, this unit in a battle tank unit. You may only field 1 tank unit with battle tank, 1 tank unit with front armor of 4 or more, 1 aircraft unit on the table at the start of the battle. So, okay, all right, interesting. It's pretty cool. Under artillery, you have air observation post. Again, same wording. Gigantic, same exact wording. Bombs and rockets is something new, although it's listed on the rules, so you just got to check those out in the rule book. Observer is listed in the rule book, although it does list the rule in the D-Day book, but again, it's listed in the rule book, so that's easy to look up and consistent with observer rules and other intelligence briefings. Rear firing, that's something that's new. Rear firing weapons can only target teams fully to the rear of the shooting team. You can only fire in an artillery bombardment if the aiming point is fully to the rear of the shooting team. So, okay, so basically stuff that points in the rear shoots in the rear. Makes perfect sense. And then time on target listed in the rule book. So simple enough to look that up. So nothing really mind blowing, but covers some of the newer vehicles as well as preventing people from maybe taking advantage of the more heavily armored things that we'll hopefully see in this book. Smooth ride is pretty cool. That's a new rule for the Easy 8s, but I think it's very apt for them. So looking at the organization, we have a good handful of formations that this book can take. We have a M4 Sherman Late Tank Company, which is our veterans, a veteran M24 Chaffee Tank Company, a late war M4 Sherman Tank Company, and a M24 Chaffee Tank Company. So basically the veteran and essentially non-veteran versions of those respective tank companies, and that's pretty apparent in the D-Day book as well. So we're very consistent with the Americans. Infantry formations, we have an armored rifle company, which is battle weary, which is something relatively new or pretty new for Americans. We have the Bastogne Parachute Rifle Company, the Bastogne Glider Rifle Company, and then the Battle Weary Rifle Company. So we'll have to take a look at those and see what battle weary means. I know with some of the British, it meant that they were reluctant veterans, for example. So they had a little harder to shoot, but their motivation wasn't as good because they've been fighting long and hard in the war and getting pretty tired. But we'll have to see how the Americans pan out with that. Tank destroyer formations, we have M18 Tank Destroyer Company, which is cool. Those were traditionally the faster versions of the tank destroyers, so we'll see if that's consistent. And then we have the M36 Tank Destroyer Company, And from the looks at the index, you'll be able to take M10s with those, because to my very limited tank knowledge, I believe they were pretty much built on the same chassis. So that's kind of cool. And selfishly, I have a M10 tank destroyer company that I built for D-Day, and I have a painted unit of M36 tank destroyers, hoping that I'd be able to use them in this book. So pretty excited to check out that Army list and see if that pans out. And then we have under the support, you can get some 2 units, 2 platoons of Greyhounds, or M5 Stuart Cavalry Recon Patrol. That's cool. That's kind of a new unit, so we'll have to see what that looks like. Then, of course, the anti-aircraft half tracks, the M15, M16 AA platoon, the 3-inch tank destroyer platoon. I love my anti-tank guns, so we'll have to check those out. And then we have, you can take 2 units of M7 Priests or 105 millimeter field artillery batteries. And then we have something new in there hiding, the T-27 xylophone rocket launcher battery. So that's cool. They're new. They were, in older books. The model's been around for a while. Maybe there'll be some new plastics. I'll have to check them out. M4 Sherman observation post, and of course the Grasshopper, and then the P-47 Thunderbolt flights, which is great. And then last but not least, the heavy artillery. So the self-propelled 155s or the 105 field artillery battery. So pretty cool. And then of course you got your wild cards and your formation support and allied support. Like other books, you can take basically combat platoons from other formations in whatever formation you choose. Obviously there's rules to that, and then you can take allies. So pretty cool in that regard. So let's maybe do a little bit deeper dive into these Army lists. Okay, looking at the M4 Sherman veteran tank company, we have our M4 Shermans, the late war versions, and right off the bat you can see you can take Pershings, which are definitely your heavier tanks. I always like Battlefront for putting not only the miniatures on the page of what each tank looks like, but also the quick stats just to show you what the differences are. I think that's very, very nice for, thinking about what platoon to take, point costs, all that good stuff, just to try to figure out your Army list and your build out. So again, I like the versatility in this list between taking Shermans, Pershings, Stuarts, and Chaffees, and those are just in your black boxes, which are your required platoons that you can take. So it gives you a real nice variety. You can really just kind of have a hodgepodge of different styled tanks on the table performing different tasks. So good versatility there. And then in your optional boxes, you can take more Shermans, obviously, Calliopes, which are essentially a Sherman with rockets on top, which is pretty cool. And then you can take a T-26 Super Pershing. So that's new for 4th edition. So the return of them, which is nice. And then the 81 millimeter mortar platoon, which ironically, things like that just refuse to go away in the U.S. Army list. They've been around since they entered the war. So it's cool to see. And then, looking at your HQs, you can start taking a look at some of the stats of the actual tanks themselves. And most of them are going to be pretty consistent with your D-Day. Obviously, the newer tanks, you're going to start seeing, different Army values, depending on tank gun ratings, that kind of thing. The veterans are confident trained, which for veteran is interesting, but, they're Americans, so pretty consistent throughout the war. So looking at their actual unit choices, looking under the Shermans, let's look at some of the newer things, because we've seen Shermans before and in our D-Day books. Let's look at some of the new stuff. The Easy 8s, same front armor as a Sherman with that front armor 7, 4 on the side, 1 on the top. You know, same rating as the HQ. They do have the heavier, the 76 millimeter gun, that anti-tank rating of 12, the 3 plus. But remember, they get that nice, you know, move 4 inches and can still fire without that +1 penalty. So something to consider when fielding them. And they're not much more. That you know, 2 points a tank. That's not too terribly much more. I mean, you're not getting a ton more out of that vehicle, but it's nice to be able to move that 4 inches and still be able to fire at full rate. And then with the jumbo, now you're talking a heavier tank. That front armor 11, so it's kind of nice to have, you know, that in the mix to be able to take those hits. And with the new, you know, targeting rules for 4th edition, where you can roll up to see, you know, kind of pick your own tank, that's kind of a nice addition to the platoon. And again, the gun variants, nothing different there. You can have a 75 or 76 millimeter gun, which is essentially the same as you know, your Shermans across the war. So no big changes there. I think realistically, you're going to pick the jumbo because of its armor. And that's traditionally why it's been picked in previous rules editions, as well as to soak up those hits. Looking at the M26 Pershing, you kind of get a nice mix of both worlds. So not quite as heavily armored as the jumbo, but it is a nice front and side armored tank. You know, it's floating in the, you know, the Tiger arena as far as survivability. The other nice thing is its gun having a anti-tank rating of a 14. So it's going to start reaching out and touching those heavier German tanks, you know, like your Panthers or your Tigers. So yeah, even at long range, it's going to be a threat. So those Persians are nice. They are definitely not cheap though. With getting 2 of them at 19 points. So it's going to be an investment, particularly if you wanted to field 5 of those at 49 points. Woo, doggy. That's half your army right there. So be very, very careful on how you're gonna field those in a force. And maybe there's some really neat cards that you can play with them to get some more effectiveness out of them. But that's quite an investment, but also a pretty nice tank, especially for Americans. So something else new, the T-26 Super Pershing. Again, bigger front armor, goes from a 9 to a 13, and its 90 millimeter gun bumping up to an 18, which is pretty awesome. And it's 16 points. It's actually not too terribly bad considering what you're getting. Now you're only getting a platoon of 1, so you want to be, you know, super careful with what you're going to do with that tank. But rate of fire 2, 48-inch range, and a anti-tank of 18. I mean, you can pretty much plop that somewhere and just let it pop off shots and pick off tanks at long range. Might be pretty effective at that. The rest of your stuff in your army list, you know, is pretty standard. Your Stuarts, your 81 millimeter mortar platoon, your Sherman assault guns with the 105s, all pretty standard stuff. Not too much has changed there. And then we get into the Chaffee Tank Company, which again, these tanks have been around in previous editions, but showing back up in 4th edition, and definitely a welcome tank. I know when I was playing Flames of War in previous editions, Chaffees were played quite a bit for their versatility and their speed. So a good tank. So you can get these are rated as confident trained as well, and they are careful, just like the veteran company. The veteran Sherman Tank Company, so hit on 4 pluses, so that's good. Again, these aren't as heavily armored as your Shermans, so front armor of a 4 versus a 7. But movement wise, you know, the Shermans are moving 10 in tactical, Chaffies are moving 12, and then terrain wise, you're looking at 14 and 20 over cross country. So at their dash move, so a little bit faster than a Sherman. So that's really why you're going to take them, is they're going to be cheaper point wise, and they got the same 75 millimeter gun that the Sherman has. So you're going to be able to field, more of them, but they're going to get around a lot faster. So it just depends on your play style. They're supported by the M8 Scots. Again, another vehicle type that's been around since pretty much since the U.S. have entered the war. But they're an effective little tank, and they got that little 75 millimeter gun that can fire artillery bombardments. So they come in handy. All right, so then we have the M4 Sherman Light Tank Company, and realistically, other than some point changes, it's going to have the same pretty much layout as the veteran one. It's just you're getting hit on a 3+ instead of a 4. They are still confident in train, so 4+ across the board there. So you're you're basically gonna get the same as you would in the veteran company. You're just gonna get more tanks. And then the statistics for the Calliope as well. So let's take a look at those. Those are basically a new tank. It's Sherman chassis. So nothing new there. The Calliope can fire a salvo, so that's nice. The Anti-Tank 2 5+ firepower. So big template, probably good for pinning. Okay with maybe punching out some dug-in troops. It's not going to be great at it, but it's good for laying down some suppressing fire and pinning some troops, so your tanks or infantry can get in a little bit closer. The one, I guess you could say, downside with taking the Calliopes is no main gun. So they have machine guns and the salvo, but that's it. So you don't get the best of both worlds there. But that's okay. It's a cool looking tank with all those rockets on top. And again, depends on your play style. Yeah, so they're going to be a little bit harder to take out versus things like your priests or your 105 guns or something like that. So, and then we get into the M24 Chaffee Tank Company. Again, it's pretty much the same options, same layout. Just your point costs are going to be a little bit cheaper, obviously, because the company's going to be getting hit on 3+. So then, as the book is laid out, we kind of jump over to the bridge at Remagen, and we look at an armored rifle company, and this is going to be battle weary. So this is something pretty much new to the Americans, and they are reluctant trained. So their motivation's 5+, but they rally a little bit easier. And again, their skill ratings are 4+, but their tactics are 3+. So they have kind of the advantages of being veterans, but they really don't want to be there. They are careful, which is nice. So hit on 4+, just like the British Desert Rats, the old reluctant veteran rules in 3rd edition. So that's kind of nice. And then, you have your HQ, pretty standard versus D-Day, and your half tracks. And let's look at the battle-weary armored rifle platoon. So taking a look at the armored rifle platoon, you have 6 rifle teams, 5 bazookas, 2 LMGs, 60 mortar, and then you get your half tracks. And that's pretty standard, as far as a full strength platoon is concerned. So they're not a reduced sized platoon, because they're battle weary or anything like that. I mean, obviously you have that option. You can take a under strength platoon if you want to, but that's up to you. And again, just like a standard armored rifle company, you have your HMG platoon, your 57 millimeter anti-tank platoon, and then your 81 mortars mounted in the half tracks, rather than essentially being able to dismount them. But that's pretty much the same as they are in D-Day. So the interesting thing about the battle weary armored rifle platoon is with its half tracks, it's 1 point more than the armored rifle platoons in D-Day, but they're actually about they're 3 points cheaper than the veteran armored rifle platoon in D-Day. And realistically, they're stat wise, they're almost very similar, with the exception of that 5+ reluctant motivation roll. And that will definitely come back to haunt you. But you are getting some point savings there that you can throw into something else. Take an extra platoon, throw some HMGs out there that you didn't necessarily have the points for before. So I think there's some flexibility in there that you can play with. But they're right in the middle between the normal armored rifle platoon and the veteran armored rifle platoon versus D-Day. So I think they're pointed quite well. Be interested to see how they play out. And then the Battle Weary Rifle Company, and I think a lot of similarities again with the rifle company counterparts in D-Day. So either the normal rifle company or the veteran rifle company. I think if you sit down and compare the points, they'll be right in the middle in there, and their layout is identical. So realistically, it's you're looking at your organizationally your full strength platoons with what were equipped with, giving you all the same options. And again, they're just those reluctant kind of veterans that really don't want to be there anymore, been in the war too long, and they just want to go home by now. So and again, they are harder to hit with that 4+. So it is nice if you play with them carefully and maybe not so aggressively. That 4+ will make them hard to hit in shooting. And if you again play with them carefully, you might not have to run into those 5+ motivation rolls too often. So looking at the parachute rifle company for Bastogne, the layout is going to be identical to things that you're going to see in D-Day. The interesting thing that I kind of noticed as I'm looking at both statistics is the Bastogne parachute rifle platoon have the last stand roll being that 2+, but statistics wise, they're identical to their D-Day counterparts. Options are the same. They're 1 point more expensive, probably because of that last stand. But I think that is a nice little flavor addition with the basically the hell that they went through at Bastogne. And if I was going to field these, I'd gladly pay that extra point for them for that 2+ last stand. I think that's very cool and characterful. And again, the same thing with the layout of the Army itself. You have your mortars, your 75mm artillery, your 57mm anti-tank guns, and your Jeeps. Pretty much same layout as they were in D-Day. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Glider Rifle Company. And organizationally, it's pretty much the same as you saw in D-Day. And these are, again, they're confident, they're veterans versus them being trained in D-Day. So that's kind of nice. They have that last stand. They're careful hitting a 4+, so they were a 3+ to hit in D-Day. So as you can see, the Glider Rifle Companies, their experiences in the war have led them to the point where they're going to be a little bit nastier to deal with, and the points reflect that. A full strength Glider Rifle platoon at Bastogne is 16 points versus its 10-point counterpart in D-Day. So you're definitely paying for those extra statistics. But again, they're going to be hard as nails at this point. And obviously their stats are showing that. Support wise, same options as they had in D-Day. So, if you have miniatures that you used in D-Day, obviously you can reuse those for Bastogne. I know, back in the day, Battlefront released Americans in winter coats and stuff. So you have those. You could always break those guys back out. The reason why I'm doing a lot of this D-Day versus Bastogne comparison is the one thing that's wonderful about Flames of War in general is you could build a tank company or an infantry company, and really you have a myriad of army options to field. And that's the one thing that I really do like is that they add in some different special rules, and you can field an infantry company in the desert, in Italy, in France, and the race to Berlin. So it's really nice to be able to paint up a army and use them in different theaters of war. Of course, that doesn't necessarily help Battlefront sales, but the nice thing is they make things so affordable that I don't think most Flames of War players have an army. I think they have multiple armies. So, but that's a topic for a different day. So let's get into the section that I'm most excited about, mainly because as we just talked about, I have a painted force, and I want to see how it pans out for this book. Let's take a look at the M18 Tank Destroyer Company. The M18s are going to be a little bit faster than your M10s. Armor-wise, they are a little bit weaker. They do have a lighter front armor. They got that good 76 millimeter gun with the anti-tank of 12, so that's nice. So realistically, you want to move with these guys carefully, cautiously. They're hard to hit, but they are mobile, so they can get into the sides and rears of the enemy's battle line, and taking three platoons of them with 4 tanks in each platoon. It's not a huge investment. So, you can have lots of tanks on there that are pretty quick and all have a good punch like a Sherman 76 millimeter. So that's pretty good. Now, this is really where I'm kind of excited, is the M36 Tank Destroyer Company, considering I have a metric ton of M10s. Well, basically a full organization of M10s. So, and I have 1 platoon of M36s. So this is really the company that I'm excited about. So same HQ as your M10 Tank Destroyer Company out of D-Day. You can take M36s. They are a little pricey, but decent front armor, a little bit less than what a Sherman tank would be. Their side armor is kind of a joke, but at least it's somewhat impervious to light guns for the most part. Machine guns, small arms, that kind of thing. Top armors, well, obviously nothing because it's open topped. The nice thing about the M36 is that they tank of 14, so that's pretty cool. But the thing I like is this veteran M10 Tank Destroyer Company that you can take in place of the M36s. Again, they're point wise, they're about the same as the M18s. They're a point more expensive. They got good front armor, a good gun with that anti-tank of 12s, the same gun as the M18s. Again, hit on 4s, and they're decent. They're a decent tank, being a veteran tank. I like the fact that the security section are veterans as well. And then, after that, you pretty much get into all your support options. And a lot of that you're going to see in the D-Day book as well. I mean, your M8 Greyhounds, that cavalry recon patrol laid out identical to the D-Day book. Your Stuarts, this is kind of a cool platoon. Pretty new. I mean, D-Day, you could take a platoon of Stuarts. In this instance, it's like a recon patrol. So you have a Stuart as your kind of like your HQ vehicle in the platoon, accompanied with some Jeeps. So it's a mixed platoon. But it's pretty cool, being able to have a Stuart basically instead of Greyhounds or a utility vehicle, something like that. Stuarts are pretty mobile. So it's an interesting platoon, and it's relatively inexpensive. So at 4 points, the 3-inch tank guns, I have a platoon of those as well. So I always like fielding those as additional anti-tank support in my M10 Tank Destroyer Company when I played D-Day. So it's good that they're still rearing their ugly head, and they're a big, nasty, ugly gun, which is cool. I love it. And then you have the 105 battery, which is, I don't know, what U.S. Army you wouldn't want 105s in with their special artillery rules. I mean, they're just a beauty to behold, and only for 10 points, they're a great support option. M7 Priests, again, pretty widely available. The heavy 155s is self-propelled. Those things pack a wallop. They're relatively inexpensive for what they do, but again, another option on the board. The xylophones are new for this book, or at least for fourth edition. Inexpensive. This is kind of like the American equivalent to the Katyusha. I'm not a big fan of taking these types of trucks. Their saves are atrocious, and I mean, yeah, you can do some indirect fire, and they got that big salvo, but it's never been a big fan of rocket launchers on trucks. But if it's your bag, they're pretty cool, and they definitely can provide an interesting role in the battlefield. The Grasshopper, OP Sherman, and the AA half tracks, and of course your infamous Thunderbolts, all widely available to Americans in pretty much any theater of operation. And the thing that I always liked about the newer intelligence briefings that Battlefront has to offer is they pretty much give you the catalog in the book, which I know that's pretty old school. There was a lot of rule books back in the day that provided a catalog, but I really do think it helps particularly new players. But you also at a nice glance as an existing player can also see what's being released, what's coming out. I mean, it's all available on the website and social media and that kind of thing as well. But usually the book comes first, then usually the starting army, the $100 basically army box. Those usually your first items, and then all the platoons and separate items come out after that. And again, just touching upon the army box itself, the starter force. I mean, you pretty much for $100, you're getting 100 points. I think it's phenomenal, and it's a great way to start. It gives you a nice mix of items that you can start playing around with, and you can then take those items and start creating different companies out of those, because it gives you a wide variety of things. So, in the Bulge Spearhead Force, for example, you get Chaffees, you get Persians, you get Shermans, you get airborne troops. So you're kind of getting like one platoon of each thing. So by going out and buying like that next platoon of parachute rifle infantry, you have now your 2 combat platoons for your parachute company. You pick up another box of Shermans, or you take your Shermans and your Persians, and now you have a new tank company, and you take pick up another box of Chaffees, and now you have a Chaffee company. And there's a wide variety of things that you can do. You have a Greyhound cavalry recon platoon, so maybe you pick up a box of M18s or M10s or M36s, which actually is a dual kit, but you can start branching out from there, and particularly with all the support choices, you can start really just expanding your force and then giving you a lot of flexibility in what games you want to play for really not a lot of money. I mean, $100, not including the book, to get into the game and basically have the point costs that, most tournaments or games are happening out in retail stores. I think that is an amazing investment for what you get. And of course, the book has your paint guides, your basing guides, shows you some scenery layouts and good quote unquote shameless plug. They have all the battlefield on box, Flames of War scenery laid out as terrain, showing you the sexiness of that. So gets you excited about going to pick up that stuff. So that's cool. I have no qualms about that at all. Gives you 3 new scenarios to play. Gives you fog rules, which is very cool. Also gives you winter rules because, well, let's face it, Battle of the Bulge happened in the winter. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the catalog, giving you lots of new things. I did find it interesting as I'm looking at the page here that it gives you a Battle of the Bulge Ace campaign, which is cool. That's something that they came out with earlier when 4th edition was released. It's kind of an older system. It's been revised and there's a new way to play it. But I think it's very, very cool that they're continuing to add to that. I've never played it personally. I've played older Ace versions, but not 4th edition. So it'd be interesting to try that out. But I like the fact that they're offering it as a product. You know, the unit cards, great, awesome. And then, of course, the command cards. And we're going to take a look, deeper dive at those in another video. And then, of course, you have all your token and dice sets. And then your nice catalog of all your American products that will be coming out. And you know, looking through these pages, they have a tremendous amount of stuff now in plastic, which, you know, I've been a little out of touch with collecting, but getting back into Flames of War after a several year hiatus. I love the plastics. They're so easy to put together, so much more efficient, time efficient when it comes to putting them together and getting them on the table. And then even the fact that they come in colored plastic now, I mean, heck, you can even play your first few games without feeling horrible about not having them painted. So I think that's phenomenal. The interesting thing is that Calliope launchers are going to be sold as a separate plastic kit. So it'd be something that, you know, hey, I already have the Shermans. I want to pick up the new plastic Calliope add-on. You just pick up that pack and away you go. That's pretty neat. Something different. I mean, normally you would just, that would be a platoon box with 3 Shermans and the Calliopes in them. But it's interesting that they did it that way, probably assuming that most people out there have, you know, a zillion Shermans. So pretty cool. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about the new items that are going to be coming out. I believe the M18 plastics, I could be wrong. I think those are new. You know, a lot of the other kits, the chaffies may also be new plastics. You know, I haven't looked at the website to see what's coming out. If the Calliopes are on a sprue, or heck, even if they're that cast plastic, like a lot of the infantry are, that'll be fine. That's something new, and hopefully they'll be much easier to put together. And then, you know, most of the rest of the range has already pretty much existed. So if you have been collecting Americans and want to build some Bulge lists, I think it's the perfect opportunity to do so. You know, they'll carry on the Bulge series. Obviously, there'll be some British that'll be coming, some Germans as well. So it'll be neat to check out those lists. And you know, I hope this encourages you to pick up the book if you haven't already thought about picking up the book. Battlefront makes it really, really easy on their price points to pick up these books. And, you know, I've been picking up each one as they come out, just for, if not for anything else, just the cool history that each book contains. And they got great maps. So overall, I would say I'm pretty satisfied, pretty happy with this Bulge book, and I'd like to try the scenarios that they have. You know, maybe even give me an excuse to bust out my paratroopers that I have and haven't painted yet, and add some more Bulge items and try to play some of these missions. Yeah, so two thumbs up from me. I like everything that I saw. It's well laid out, good design work, nice pictures, good painted miniatures. So yeah, I mean, it's very typical of what I would expect from Battlefront miniatures, and I was happy to be able to look at this book, review it for you, and, you know, hopefully get you excited about the Flames of War hobby. So drop any comments down below. You know, what army list do you want to build out of this book? You know, are you excited about anything in particular? You know, you're going to try the missions in the book. You know, you getting ready for a tournament coming down the line, hopefully with COVID restrictions loosening up a little bit. You know, we'll see some more tournaments out there. So yeah, throw a like, or throw a don't like if you didn't like what I had to say. Either way, you know, I love to see your comments. You know, subscribe to the channel. I want to provide more content, hopefully on a more consistent basis. So yeah, Thanks for listening and staying with me this whole time, and look forward to providing you some more videos in the future. This is Joe from Watchful Studio. Thanks for watching.